Welcome to AngularJS Directives tutorial. In this tutorial, we'll go through what are directives and how these directives can be used in HTML, and also the convention how directives can be used in different contexts, and how finally Angular can actually process these directives. So what are directives? Directives are markers for DOM elements, which can be used at different levels, say like HTML attribute level or element level or comment or even at CSS class level. So these actually act like additional pieces of markup, which Angular interprets to extend the default behavior of HTML. By defining this way, AngularJS's HTML compiler could actually attach a specified behavior to that DOM element, or it could even transform that particular DOM element and its embedded children. So here we actually provided example for each and every level. So as highlighted here, you could actually see a fictional Angular directive is being used ng-foo, but this doesn't really exist within the Angular directives, and this is just being used for the example sake. So here you could actually see within the div element a ng-foo attribute exists with some value, and this is how you could actually refer some Angular directive at HTML attribute level. And similarly, in the second example, you could see how ng-foo is being used at HTML element level within the opening and closing tags. And in the third example, you could see how it can be used at comment level. And in the fourth example, you could actually see how ng-foo is being specified as a CSS class. So in this manners, you could actually define directives at different levels. But in reality, not all directives can be used in each way. For example, a directive named ng-repeat is very commonly used in the context where we could actually loop items in a collection, but this actually makes this directive to be used as an attribute only. So it's also worth mentioning that best practice dictates that directive should be used as elements and attributes level, but using it as classes and comments level is actually avoided, and that exists just for supporting legacy applications. So coming to the convention, so in Angular, directives are actually named using camel casing. So the ng-foo, which we were actually checking before, is just for the HTML convention purpose. So in HTML, you could actually place it as ng-foo, and all lowercase letters with dashes used to separate words is the way how HTML uses it. But whereas when Angular processes it, it gets converted to the ng in small and f in caps and o again in small. So it gets converted into the camel casing form. So how does Angular process these directives? So any directives which are actually are embedded in HTML are initially normalized. So as example highlighted here, you could see multiple references how it could be defined in HTML. Say like ng-foo or x-ng-foo or even like data-ng-foo or even delimiting with colon and underscore. So initially, Angular removes all these prefixes. Say like it removes the x dash prefix or data dash prefix, and it also converts all the uh, delimited names here. Say like the colon delimited or the underscore or hyphen. You could actually convert all these names to camel case. So all these values which are actually provided here are finally converted to this form of ng uh, capital F O form. So what are the preferred formats? The dash delimited format or the data dash prefixed format are the preferred formats. So ng-foo is a way how officially usage can actually happen, but data dash ng-foo can also be used when you actually wanted to use in the context of HTML validation tool or so. So these two formats would be the preferred formats. And when you start using Angular, you observe that Angular ships with a number of built-in directives in which official directives are always prefixed with ng. But developers can also define custom directives to suit their application's needs. And while creating custom directives, those are also to be prefixed. But however, ng prefix shouldn't be used for any custom directive, as it might potentially conflict with any Angular directive which might be defined in the future. So for all custom directives, no one should be using ng as the prefix. So here in this example, we actually provided my FOO, which can be used as a custom directive for an example. So let's see the example which we were actually referring to, data binding tutorial. So we actually have a HTML directive saying like ng-app. So this attribute is needed only once for the whole Angular application. In general, you will actually see this attribute either on HTML or body tags. And if you actually forget to use this directive, none of the Angular code will actually execute. So there is one other Angular directive which is used multiple times in this example, which is ng-model. So this particular directive actually establishes two-way data binding, which is used throughout Angular, and this attribute instructs Angular to bind to the value in the available scope. And defining using this attribute, you could actually use the value of that particular element anywhere using braces. So here you could actually see for the gender radio you are actually using within the braces and using it here. And similarly for the first name and last name, you are actually using the value of that particular elements within the braces. There is one other HTML usage of Angular directive ng-disabled. So here you could actually see this being used as an attribute level, and this dynamically controls the field. Here the field is the button, and it actually controls the button either to be disabled or not based on the Angular expression, which is actually defined based on the first name and last name uh, fields. So here we're actually specifying the Angular expression and controlling it, saying like if both the fields are not empty, only then enable the button to be accessible to the user. So here you could see in the browser. So this is how uh, it actually renders in the browser, like the yeah, here the male and female are the corresponding inputs you are actually looking at before, these two values. And similarly the first name and last name are the input fields here, and the gender and welcome text actually corresponds to the H2 headings here. So as you could see, you could type, change the value and type a different value, and you could actually see here, yeah, here you could see it is actually being modified dynamically. And similarly the radio button can also be modified, and the as the value is two-way data binded, the view is correspondingly affected. And now as you see, the sign up button is actually enabled, but if you actually make this field empty and check this, you see this field is disabled. So this is the expression what we were looking at before, the first name dot length and last name dot length. So as you enter some value back, you could see the sign up button is enabled again. So with this, we actually covered basic usage of AngularJS directives. Thanks for watching.